starting. Hi everyone, welcome to Do You Believe show on livesci-fi.tv. Thanks so much for everyone for being here tonight. Tonight we're going to be talking about... Uh-oh. Hello?
Hello, are you card?
Sorry about that. So tonight we're going to be talking about satanic secrets in Hollywood. And tonight I have a guest with me, Kessler, who is a demonologist. And he has written a book, was it Demonology 101, Kurt?
Yeah, it's Demonology 101. That was my first book, and then followed up with Demonology 201, and published a few other little books, so to speak.
And also, thanks viewers for joining us, and I wanted to let you know that we will answer your questions toward the end of the show, and if anybody would like to call in and talk to Kurt, I can call you on my phone. Just give Tim your phone number, and I'd be happy to call you if you want to do your questions live on the chat. Also, for those that won the books, I got the books last week, and the book, The Bloodstain, so all the winners of the book, I'll be mailing those out tomorrow, so be watching for that as well. So again, thanks everybody for joining the show. Thank you, Kurt, for joining and being a guest tonight with me. And so, Kurt, this topic to me is very interesting, and I've been doing a lot of research on it, and I found information that this started way back in the 1920s with Valentino, and found out that he and his wife were satanic worshipers, and they belonged to some satanic church. And I think he also started his own religion. Do you know anything about that?
Well, now, as far as him starting his own religion, God.
It was Raja or something.
There's been a lot of mythology, if you will, that's actually been invented by the conspiracy theorists over the years. I've even heard everything from... I once had a gentleman try to tell me that Mr. Valentino had been possessed by a demon, went out and caused the Black Dahlia murder, whereupon the gentleman in question really got upset with me when I pointed out that Mr. Valentino had died about 20 years before the Black Dahlia murder.
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
People are wanting to believe in a lot of, mythoses that are some are based in fact, and I give credit where credit is due. But the reality is that you kind of have to use and for lack of a better term, I'm not trying to offend anyone, you kind of have to use a BS filter to get through a lot of the BS in order to get to actual facts. Is there a conspiracy in Hollywood? Yeah, I do think there actually is. Is it as overblown and as secretive as some people made out to be? No, it's far from it.
Really?
Yeah, and it goes to the one concept like I do try to follow, and that is when you blow a conspiracy up to the point to where it looks like it's infested in everything, it makes you lose sight, if you will, of the true conspiracy, because you do that all the time. It's very much like with the conspiracy behind JFK. We sit there and the people that are into that conspiracy, they like to believe that Oswald did not act alone, and that there's all these other conspiracy twists and all that stuff. And the problem is that really when you look at all the little conspiracy twists, it's all sideshow. The conspiracy boils down to Mr. Oswald and a few others did shoot the president. That is if you subscribe to that conspiracy. But you gotta stop at the point that you start saying that Bigfoot was involved with it, and so forth, because like I said, it's all this sideshow conspiracy that makes you actually lose focus on the real conspiracy. And the same with Hollywood. People have always tried to, since Hollywood, and especially for television was invented, and we could actually see the stars every day in our homes, if you will. People have always tried to point to television and other media outlets as being these cesspools, if you will, of satanic conspiracy, and the reality is no, it's not.
Okay. Since I got involved in this subject, I found so many websites on the satanic stuff in Hollywood, and I've been reading some horror things, and just about according to these articles, just about every movie star is involved in the satanic stuff. John Travolta, you name it, John Travolta, Shakira, I mean, everybody in the industry, music, producers, entertainers, they're all involved in it. And they've named off hundreds and hundreds of names. And not only that, this sign stuff that they do, like this. You have your computer on? Like this. The horned god, a signal of witchcraft. And this is supposed to, I guess, let others know that they are in this satanic cult?
Well, now that right there, that actually comes out of the Great Satanic Panic. I'm glad you actually did that sign, because I think it's a good way of probably initializing the understanding, if you will, of dispelling. What that actually is, that actually isn't the horned god. That's the goofy part about it is, there was a gentleman who recently died. His name was James Del Rio, and he was part of the rock band Rio. Well, his grandmother was old school Slavic, raised, Slavic Catholic and so forth. She was the Eastern Bloc of Europe, and there they actually use that symbol, but they normally hold it downward, or they hold it straight out ahead of them, and it actually means out with the evil eye. It's actually a holy symbol.
But in the satanic cult, this is what they use. 3 different signs. They use this one. They use this, the sign of the devil, from what I've read, and then they use this one, letting everybody know that they are to be recognized as part of the satanic cult. So I don't know.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, you also have to remember that a lot of this modern satanic cultism, if you will, that people know of, is the whole concept of what was born out of Mr. LaVey's version of occult religion. The Church of the Satanic Church, the Church of Satan, the first Church of Satan, if you will, is actually an atheist religion. It's not actually an actual satanic religion. There are, much like Christianity, once it was formed out of the earthly, it started the earthly Catholic Church. It got shattered over the years because there were people that had different points of views, and these points of views became everything from the Baptist Church to the regular Protestant Church to the Lutheran and so forth. And the same thing, for the lack of better degree, actually happened with the Satanic Church. Now, before you had the first Church of Satan, yes, you actually had strict occult practices that actually did follow the devil worshiping.
Now, that Anton LaVey, he started the first church of he was the founder of the Church of Satan.
That's correct. But like I said, he founded the actual church on on the belief of atheism. Okay, and a lot of people sat there and tried to pervert it into like, no, they're out there killing small kids or they're sacrificing animals. And the reality is no, they would through rituals, but ironically, if you actually read the works of LaVey, he didn't believe in it. He didn't believe that the devil actually truly existed. He believed, if anything, man was the true devil. He also believed that God didn't exist. And that's the reason why 9 times out of 10, because, I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years, when I get called by an official of some sort, sitting there asking for my opinion, the second I actually hear that the people in question were associated with the Church of Satan, I automatically know that you're talking about atheists. You're not actually talking about true occult conspiracy or anything. There is a lot of cases that are reported throughout the year to officials that look occult, and it just turns out, no, there's a bunch of dumb kids out in the woods, and they did some stupid stuff. The one aspect of realizing that there are many different levels of any religion is usually when you can finally stop and realize that through these different levels, then you actually can you can start to actually formulate as to what's actually going on. And much in the Hollywood thing, there are spiritualists, but then again, you also have spiritualists in every walk of life. And I think I'm not saying that there isn't, an actual satanic conspiracy involved in Hollywood, but it isn't to the level that some people like to stress and like to believe. Just because you see the film Alice in Wonderland, the animated feature from Walt Disney, doesn't mean that there was a group of Satan worshippers sitting around like saying, oh, well, we'll put this in to make that, or we'll do that to make people believe in the devil and all that stuff. They made the movie. Sometimes actually people just make movies just to entertain people, and that's the one thing that we as viewers do actually need to stop and realize, is a lot of times it's just entertainment.
Well, okay, so it's what I found also is that it is believed that since the early 1950s, the Luciferian cabal slowly gained more and more control in Hollywood.
Well, and see, that's a contradiction in terms, actually, because cabal actually isn't even satanic. Cabal is actually, of course, it's Jewish mysticism. It's Jewish magic. That's the one thing I think a lot of people have. They mislead themselves because people automatically hear the word witchcraft, or they hear the word occult, and they automatically think of a group of people in a circle holding candles, wearing robes, and chanting. And the reality is no. The one thing about the word occult, especially, is that every religion is the occult. The occult is nothing more but the archaeological views of artifacts or even early rituals or ceremonies that every religion has. Christianity, I mean, there are early rituals and ceremonies that took place even in Christianity that they no longer practice. One thing, actually, I think most people do get actually shocked, especially I've noticed, unfortunately, it does shock a lot of American Baptists, is there were early Christian rituals that actually still had animal sacrifice and even human sacrifice. It isn't the word occult isn't really a dirty name. Now, and even the word witchcraft isn't even a dirty name. But there are, like I said, there's a lot of people that they hear those words and they automatically run to the deepest, darkest, worst corners of their mind, and they allow their mind to write these massive conspiracies. And it's to me, that's even more scary sometimes than the actual conspiracies. But
Well, okay, so why I had on the web hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pictures of celebrities, of the government officials, even Bill Maher, all using these hand signals. And they said that that Oprah Winfrey was the queen of this stuff, and the stars, the ones that are mostly famous and have lots of money, have all turned over onto the Satanism occult stuff.
Well, the trick about it is that if you take a person and they become successful, a lot of people automatically want to assume that they're a part of some conspiracy, some occult conspiracy, because people often stop and they look at themselves and they say, well, how did this person become successful? I'm better than they are. But the reality is that no, some people are just, they got successful. Oprah Winfrey, I mean, let's face facts. Really, if you look at everything, she just started out with a talk show, but she invested her money wisely.
Are you sure that's all it was?
A lot of people.
Are you
That's all it boils down to is she didn't sit there and say, okay, I'm going to say this, she didn't sit there as the typical black woman that wins the lottery and say, okay, I'm going to buy all my relatives brand new cars, all my relatives brand new houses, and then, you ain't got no money. No, she sat there and she said, okay, I'm going to buy this modest house for myself and my very close family. I'm going to buy a few automobiles, and the rest of the money, it's going into the bank. It's going to make investments. That's the reason why people actually get rich in this world, is because they take their money and they make it work. It has nothing to do with sitting there and worshiping a deity. It has to do with just making the proper decisions in life.
Well, see that picture that I'm showing? See that sign that she uses? She uses that quite a bit. And then, same thing here with Justin Timberlake. It's the one-eyed devil. So, does that just symbolize Satanism?
No, actually, that symbol right there, if anything, that's actually, I'm looking at that. That was actually an early Jewish rabbi symbol. That actually meant to look from the eyes of an angel, actually. That's the reason why I'm just like, it's a little bit weird seeing that people would consider that to be satanic. That's not satanic at all. That's actually looking through the eye of an angel. And then even with Mr. Timberlake here and him producing the symbol, there is the whole original concept of just saying okay, but that's not actually it is an occult symbol, if you will, but it's actually an occult symbol that relates into positive thinking and not a negative.
Yeah. Now, supposedly that's a sign of recognition for Satan.
Well, like I said, I think there's a lot more conspiracies where they see something and they automatically jump it up and bring it to these worse ideas and views. I mean, I'm seeing the one right there with the whole 666,
yeah.
And that's really funny because the true term, the true inventor of the term 666, it doesn't actually appear in the Bible. That's Mr. Crowley who came up with that. And then now we've got the one right there, Lisa Marie. Right, and she's holding her hands up in that symbol. And like I said, that was actually the rock band Rio, the lead singer. His grandmother was Slavic, and that actually meant out with the evil eye. And he just saw the symbol, and he just, he held it up, and, well, let's face facts. It's a rock band. You have kids. What do? They follow suit. They start doing it. And then, people automatically say, oh, it's devil. It's devil. Yeah. And the reality is no, if you look at the legacy of Mr. Rio, I mean, he actually ended up dying high up in the regular Christian church. He actually, if memory serves, he actually made enough money to actually go ahead and basically fund 2 churches having expansions on them. That's not really a way of sitting there and actually causing the growth of Satanism, that's actually causing the growth of Christianity. So that does kind of shock me how these people are working these conspiracies now.
Yeah. Oh God, there's pages and pages of this. Now, Bush uses that sign an awful lot. A lot of his pictures, he is using that sign, and the same thing with Barbara. She does it as well.
Well, now, actually, in all fairness, now the symbol that I just saw actually with Mr.
Gene Simmons.
Yeah, that one right there. If you notice, his thumb was out to the side, and in sign language, that actually means "I love you."
Well, that's what they say, but it's still supposedly related to the occult.
Well, now comes an actual conspiracy. Now we get to have fun with this one. No, because we're actually on Mr. Bush.
Oh, here, let me put back Bush. Okay.
Many years ago, there was a lady who was part of the McCall Empire and so forth, and she was feeling dissident. So she went to Europe and actually went to Loch Ness. And while she was there, she had been staying with a group of people that were in a house that was on Loch Ness. And while she was there, she was just experimenting with life. She was away from her husband and so forth. And this is, it really wasn't as uncommon as what people think, even for way back when. And she left this house, came back home, and lo and behold was pregnant and gave birth to a daughter. And the daughter's name was Barbara. Now, later on, Barbara married a gentleman who ended up becoming a senator, eventually a vice president, and even a president. She, of course, gave birth, that gentleman's name was George Bush Sr., and she gave birth to George Bush Jr. But now comes a real trick. The lady, like I said, her mother had stayed with Aleister Crowley. And Mr. Crowley, of course, believed in a wild, lethargic amount of magic and magic use, and actually in the use of sex magic. And it's mildly ironic that less than 5 days after she leaves Loch Ness and comes back home to America, she announces that she's going to possibly give birth, and it's confirmed. And her husband kind of looked the other way. Her husband just assumed, well, maybe it was that first night back. But it is funny, if you take a photograph, actually, of Barbara Bush, and you put it up to an older photograph of Mr. Crowley, there is a little bit of, resemblance there.
Mm.
It little because one of the things that Crowley was determined to do, he knew he himself could not actually facilitate it, but he did want to actually facilitate the ruling of the world somehow, albeit through himself or offspring. So, like I said, you really want a conspiracy, look into that one, because I think it'd be mildly ironic if, here we were all this time, and there's no way around it. A lot of people I know like to sit there and like to go on about Obama being evil or whatever.
Oh yeah, Obama as well uses that symbol, and the same with the royal family. William uses it. The Queen Elizabeth has used it.
Well, and also, but the real key thing about it is that there are symbols left and right, especially with hands, that can mean a plethora of things. Just because you have, you're doing the one horn sign, if you will, the double horn. Always remember the original time in history when it was introduced. It was anti-satanic. Okay. And I know, like I said, a lot of people would like to say, oh, well, it just proves satanic aspects, but you can't sit there and turn a Twinkie into a ho-ho. It's still a Twinkie, all right? Now,
Yeah.
we don't have either which right now, but that's the best way of explaining it. Or maybe you can't take a can of Diet Coke and call it regular Coca-Cola. it's a different formula. It's a different expression. It's a different meaning. Now, Mr. Bush right there, of course, he's raising up his two fingers without the thumb off to the side. You can't exactly look at Bush and realize he was the smartest president on the planet. You know, he wasn't exactly that intelligent. So if he forgot to move his hand out to, or his finger out to the side, you might just have to accept that. Just at face value. Sometimes dumb people are just dumb, and that's the key part about it. I mean, let's face facts. This is the same man that sat there and was speaking on behalf of doctors, looked out to a crowd full of women and said there are so many gynecologists that want to practice their love with women, you know, because he was trying to have people overlook getting these doctors to pay up on their malpractice insurance. You know, I mean, like I said, if somebody tells me George Bush is evil incarnate, and all because he didn't move his thumb out to the side when he actually was basically trying to tell people I love you, you know what? I'm honestly going to believe that, yeah, the man forgot to move his thumb out. He's not exactly the evil mastermind that we could believe. And I know I actually do sit there and even possibly suggest with the earlier story about Mr. Bush being the offspring of Mr. Crowley. And in some aspects, I do feel bad about saying that, because I think it's actually an insult to Aleister Crowley at this point. Mr. Bush has not proven himself that smart. So, yeah. Sorry.
Well, I don't know where they're getting all this information on the web, but like I said, there's tons of it. And now they're saying that Jim Carrey is the head priestess of this cabal, and Martin Scorsese has stepped down. And they said the reason that these movie stars all get into this is because they want to make more money and they want to be recognized as the top movie stars in Hollywood. And then that there are those that kind of slip down and they're not as popular anymore, and that they have to come back, make atonement. For instance, John Travolta. They said, okay, and they have to, this atonement, they have to have a loved one get killed. And so in the case of John Travolta, he had his son killed in order for him to come back into the limelight and become more famous. They also said that about Jennifer Hudson. You know who Jennifer Hudson is, the one that won the, she was on American Idol. Of course, she didn't win, but she has become quite famous with her music and won those little Emmy Awards. And her two of her family members were shot and killed here in Oakland, California. So what do you know about that? What do you know about that?
Well, in all fairness, I mean, let's stop and actually just take an even further step back and actually just analyze a lot more than just those people. Really, when it comes down to it, it almost sounds like to me the people that are writing these conspiracies are failed script writers. It does sound almost prophetic, really, when you think about it. Oh, well, the mighty star is up, and then they fall, and then they need to suffer loss in order to gain stardom again. The reality is that, I mean, if that's the case, then fine. Abraham Lincoln was a part of the Satanic conspiracy. He lost his mom, he lost his son, and then he finally could become president. You know, I mean, seriously, there's no methodology to this.
What do you know about the Lincoln curse?
The Lincoln curse, yeah, like I said, that was the part that got me. Was not too long ago, someone was trying to suggest to me, only because there was a film called Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, and of course the graphic novel. They were trying to suggest to me that no, vampires are real, and this all took place because like certain parts of the film, certain parts of the book actually intersected with real history. And the reality is no, the person that wrote the story was actually really passionately into Abraham Lincoln and just found a way of writing the story to fit around the mythology, if you will, that vampires were attacking the country. Um, that's the part that gets me. Here we are actually, blessedly, if you will, we are on January 3rd, 2013, and less than a month ago, we had a bunch of people, because they were so paranoid of evil things attacking them, climb in the bunkers, board up their windows, and literally just get ready to suffer the end of the world. And here we are. We're like I said, we're just under a month after the event, if you will, and none of that happened. Why? Because it wasn't going to happen. But yet there was enough of conspiracy, enough of a belief to suggest to people, oh yeah, this was going to happen. But here we are. We're alive. Why? Because it through a combination of things, it wasn't going to happen. And as far as the Lincoln curse, bad things happen. Mr. Lincoln wasn't the only one to suffer a lot of tragedy in his life. There are people left and right that suffer tragedies. My wife upstairs, who's here in the house with me, had to suffer the loss of her brother out of the blue. And she's getting ready to graduate college, now almost like 3 years after the fact. And I'm sitting there saying to myself, if I go with these conspiracies, does this mean my wife gave her soul over to Satan in order to pull this off? She had to suffer the loss of her brother in order to achieve greatness by graduating? No. Bad things happen. We as humans need to accept it. And then we carry on, we push forward. Sometimes those bad tragedies are actually, it is almost a blessing, because it gives us that drive to push forward and become better people.
Well, they're also saying that the stars, they have a lot of astrologers that work with them, spiritualist mediums, and they've been taught, I guess, how to communicate with the afterlife, and they conjure up the spirits to get possessed so they can do these fabulous scenes. And I've seen 2 interviews, one with Denzel Washington, who said he admitted that he conjured up the spirits so that he could do some of the fabulous scenes that he does. That was on 60 Minutes. And then another interview with Bob Dylan, who said that he wanted to be famous, and he wanted to be the best and top rated in music, and he also contacted the spirits. And that also goes way back to in the early 1900s with Robert Johnson, the famous blues singer, who said that he sold his soul to the devil to become famous.
Well, and the reality is that people can say that, but at the same time, if there is truth in that, then this country is, I'm just going to announce it right here and right now, this country is no matter what, is headed for the biggest downfall in history. We are headed straight to hell, and I have proof of it. If we follow that conspiracy theory, if we follow that idea...
Isn't that the Illuminati?
Oh, no, even better. We even were given proof of it. We were given strict proof, if you go by that, because Nancy Reagan, before her husband was president, consulted astrologists.
Yes, she did.
After her husband was president, she consulted astrologists. Okay, just because people sit there and they are interested in mysticism and so forth, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. People sit there. The best way of explaining some of the theories is always look at, stop and look at history, if you will. There have been countless people that have been interested into the metaphysic, and just because these people get interested and try their best to make contact, it doesn't mean they're bad person. I mean, I would like to believe I'm not a bad person, and I've spent over 20 years trying to be in constant contact with the dead in some way, shape, or form. Now, granted, my methods, I'm not a big Ouija board user and so forth. I kind of try to believe in using cameras and so forth. But the reality is no, we are not bad people. Nobody is a bad person for trying to make contact with the dead, or the other side, if you will. And I think, like I said, it just, especially with a lot of these people, with a lot of the concept of what some people call the allegiance of the damned and so forth. They're borderline grasping at straws. And seriously, I would actually stop and I would look at a lot of the people. I would try my best to find out who these people are writing these stories, if you will, and try to find out their back history and try to find out who they are. Because if the conspiracy, if you will, is as big as they claim, then there's no way around it. They themselves have already been investigated by the quote higher ups. And chances are, what I'm actually just suspecting is you got a lot of people in Hollywood who didn't make it big. So they just said, oh, well, everybody else is selling their soul to Satan, and it's an easy way of getting out of stuff. I mean, guys at bars do it all the time. You go out, you have a couple drinks in you talk to a pretty girl, she shoots you down. First thing you do when you walk away, you just say lesbian, I mean, that's the best way of explaining it. It's the same theory. It's just applied on a grander scale. I try to make it in Hollywood. I try to sell some scripts. I try to be an actor or an actress. I couldn't make it. Bunch of satanic conspiracy. And the sad part is that much like the guy in the bar who walks back to his buddies at the table and says she's a lesbian, we as the public are like the guys. We hear satanic conspiracy, we eat that up, and we go, yeah, that's what it is.
Well, what about the movies today?
The movies today, the biggest part about it is that there's a lot of great script writing, and I'll give credit where credit is due. There are people that have taken real life cases and twisted them in such a way that, yes, they are entertaining for the hour and a half to 2 hours that they're on screen. But there's a lot of times that we have to stop and we really have to focus, if you will, on trying to make sure that what we're seeing is, we understand that there's a work of fiction on screen. We unfortunately, we as humans, we see that sometimes and we just buy it. We buy every part of it, and the reality is it's not the case in every situation.
Like the latest one was the one on the Dybbuk box. Oh God, that Jewish box. What was the name of that movie?
The Possession, was that the film?
Possession? Oh yeah, Possession. Yeah, but that was a true. That was taken off of a true story.
It's taken off of a true story, but there are always twists. Now, one thing I know that case. Ha ha ha.
You do?
The biggest thing about it is in the film there is a line that's said in the movie, and the way it's set up in the movie to tell the line is the father had bought his daughter his pizza, even though his ex-wife said, don't buy her pizza and don't let her stay up late.
Right.
And sitting there laying in bed with her, and he's saying, I'll give you $5 if you don't tell your mother. And then the little girl says, well, better make it 35. And he laughs. Now, that scene is real. That actually happened, okay? Because everything else that took place in the movie, not so much. The reason why the little girl said, better make it 35, was because the father was actually molesting the daughter.
And you know that for a fact?
For a fact.
Oh my God.
That's one of the big things about it, especially in dealing with people that are suffering from demonic possession. And like I said, not every case is like this, and it saddens me in either direction, if it happens that way or not. Because dealing with a demon in general is just it's a pain in the butt.
So
But
she got possessed. Okay, so she got possessed, but she was also being molested by her daughter. I mean, by her father.
that's just it. She didn't really get possessed. It was a way for her mind to rewrite, and then that's the one thing you have to bear in mind with a lot of these cases. Yeah, there are some things that can seem paranormal, or supernatural, if you will. But once you break that barrier and verify that it's not paranormal and it's not supernatural, then yeah, you do have to start looking at the psychology, and you have to actually start focusing on that. And in too many cases, I've actually seen this, and it disturbs the hell out of me, because it's just cases of children undergoing a lot of psychological abuse, albeit through sexual and or physical, just general physical abuse. There's a few cases where I've actually seen that, and ironically, in a lot of these cases, sometimes it doesn't surface as close to the actual incidences, much like in that case. Sometimes it surfaces later on in life, like they sit there and they say, oh, well, we had a demon in the house, or a demon is still affecting me. And the reality is after doing enough family interviews, enough mental evaluations, you start realizing, and you start working it all out. And it does. I mean, I'll be honest, Noreen, I've been in situations that have been purely paranormal. I've been hit in the head with a 5-pound glass ashtray that flew 20 feet across the room, square at my head, and it hurt. And put me up in those situations, and I'll charge right in again. I don't care. But those other situations where it just turns out people were abused like that, it turns my stomach every time. And I honestly, I start to go down those cases and start to find this stuff out, and it does. I sit there and I want to just start punching myself in the face, because I'm like, I don't want to know anymore.
Do you believe then a human being can be possessed by a demon?
I've seen it, so yeah, I do believe that. Yes.
You know, I've done so many shows, and some say, no, there's no such thing as demons, they're just bad spirits. And some do believe in demons. So I have yet to get a straight answer, or the same answer from anybody, Kurt.
Well, the best way, this is the best way I try to explain it, because, and I've actually made atheists understand, and they say, okay, it does sound plausible, it does sound workable, is we have to actually stop and take a step back from religions as we know it. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian, Satanist, Jewish, whatever. One thing that we do understand, at least in theory, is that at the beginning of time, beginning of our universe, we had the Big Bang. And out of that Big Bang, we got two different discharges of energies throughout the universe. We got positive energy and we got negative energy. And granted, we got a fine line of what we can call neutral energy, but like I said, it basically just boils down to positive and negative. And as the planets formed and so forth, and we got solar systems and all this, people on planets where human life evolved, such as Earth, people sat there and they started praying, and they started focusing their own energy toward a deity. Now, like I said, it doesn't matter if you believe the Big Bang was the wave of the deity's hand or not, because we do know that before the God Jehovah, or for the Christians out there who don't realize it, the name Jehovah, that God, that was Jesus' daddy. Before his name was even uttered on this planet, people worshiped different types of religions. And as they focused all their energy through prayer and whatnot, they kind of gave birth to these entities, because these pools of positive and or negative energy started to form. Because of the thought process, people started to give these energies form. And if you will, if you go to another idea in the realm of religions, you've got these pantheons where the religion were constantly fighting with each other, because each one wanted to be the power. Why? I mean, let's face facts. You've got people worshiping you. You've got people delivering energy to you. So then eventually, when one religion becomes dominant, the other religions go off to the wayside, but people still bring them up every so often, and when they do, these energies get unleashed. And that's actually, if you will, where the demons come from. As much as an angel can be created, well, so can a demonic entity. And these entities, that's the best way of explaining a demon, is that they're an entity, but unlike an ex-ghost, which was once a human, they were founded out of human thought, and they weren't founded out of once actually living a true life. Now, people like to sit there and they like to worry about these entities invading their homes, and there are tactics that one can do to help avoid that. It doesn't matter if the spirit was once human or not. There are things you can do. I bought a house about 2 years ago, and when I did, one of the first things I actually did was I spent close to $2,500 packing my walls with certain things and just basically spirit proofing my house. And you can go through these exercises, but in the end, you have to remember, demons were never alive. They were never a tangible, living, breathing thing, but they are a focus of energy. They are a channeled source. They are a direction. And it's understanding who they are, and even angelic entities, and even ex-deities, if you will.
So Kurt, so if somebody is possessed by a demon, your personality changes, right?
That's correct. No,
Okay.
Usually you will see severe personality changes.
Would their personality be the same all the time, or would it just change? Sometimes they go back to normal, and then sometimes they become not a nice person. Does it switch back and forth, or does the personality change? It's a constant change.
You will see personalities change. You will even see people physically change, to the point to where I've seen women who undergone possession all of a sudden have a very male, animalistic looking face, to where their face had enlarged, their hands had elongated. I mean, this isn't exactly something that, you're just because a person is becoming possessed. I mean, it's not just demonic entities or even angelic entities that can cause possession. There are spirits that can do the same as well. But also it does depend on the person. Some people thrive for it. Some people hope on it. Some people, they consider themselves to be psychic mediums, and the mediums especially are the ones that really try to exercise that ability to if you will, become possessed. Now granted, they always try to practice the concept of being in control of that possession, but in the end, let's face facts. They're becoming possessed, but it doesn't mean that they're always in control. There's no such thing. Once you have something in control of you, well, remember, something is in control of you. And unless you find a way of properly ridding it out of you, then you're always going to be subject to that. And that can be, like I said, it can be anything from personality changes to whatever.
Would the person themselves know that they've been possessed?
That's just it. Some people do realize, because they have a lot of blacking out, and when you're constantly being told, well, no, you came in and you started just smacking the kids around, some people kind of realize something isn't right. Now, granted, most of the time, most people do actually turn to psychology because, like I said before, there's a fine line between paranormal and just basic common knowledge, if you will. There's a reason why parapsychology is a term, because you have parapsychology and you have still regular psychology. If you come in and start beating your kids randomly, you've got two ways it can go. It just means either you've got personal issues you seriously need to work out, and if that's not working, then yeah, there could be something paranormal, if you will, on that fix. But most people automatically turn to the regular psychology, which is actually, I always tell people all the time, that's actually the first best thing to always do, because 99% of the time, that's going to be the actual problem solved. It's that last percent, that's the one where I get referred to, and then I have to stop and I have to go through all the little ropes and trips and ticks and all this little stuff to figure out what's going on, and if there is an actual possession, and if there is an actual possession, who and or what is doing the possession. So it's a give take. I think mathematically the best way of describing this stuff to people,
Wow.
is always look at it this way. You take all the paranormal cases that are reported throughout 1 year. 80% of those cases are not actually paranormal. It's anything from a squirrel in the attic to whatever. That last 20%, about 15 to 17% of it, you've got questionable, really, really questionable as whether or not it's paranormal. The evidence basically can be pointed in either direction.
Wow.
Then out of that, you've got guaranteed paranormal cases, and then, like I said, it's about 3 to 5%, depending on how many cases are reported every year. And out of that little small percentage of true paranormal cases, just because people are experiencing some negative activity in their home or what have you, they automatically assume it's a demon. And the reality is no, it's not. Out of those, like I said, true paranormal cases, 1 out of every 200, you're dealing with something demonic. That's just a mathematical figure, okay? It doesn't mean that, well, we've got a demonic case, about 200 more cases, and it won't be, and you'll have another demonic. No, it could be like, 3 more cases down the road, you're dealing with the actual demonic, but like I said, about 1 out of every 200.
Wow.
And in those cases, you have to stop and you have to actually apply basic logic. Because if you don't, then you're going to get lost in the fold. Too many times, like I said, people automatically assume that a negative entity or whatnot, negative activity that's going on inside a home is because of a demon. And like I said, reality is no, it could be a spirit, and it could be a bad spirit, because it's the old standby common sense approach of saying, well, if a person was a bit of a bastard when they were alive, what makes you think they're going to be a good person once they're dead?
You know what, Kurt? Let me ask the viewers if they have any questions. Anyone in chat have any questions for Kurt?
Actually, can I field one? I think I'm seeing one.
How can you tell?
I'm seeing one that says, you have to know which is it. Which I'm assuming the person wants to know whether or not it's demonic and or just a regular spirit.
You have a question? I just didn't.
If something is demonic, I used to carry around a large box of artifacts that would trip off
Hold on for a minute.
certain things inside homes, that if it was demonic in nature, it would react to this. I've actually been able, through trial and error and a lot of testing, I've actually made a sheet, if you will, that is actually, it helps me out tremendously, because I can mail this. I can just print it off, fold hold it off. Sometimes just email it to a person, they'll print it off. But give it to a person, they put it inside the house, and then I tell them put it out right out in the open, and then take a photograph of it, like keep it around for about a week. Take a photograph of it, send it back to me, because deciphering whether or not there's markings on the paper, whether or not ink has bled, and so forth, it can actually give me not only definition as to whether or not you're actually dealing with something demonic, but even definition as to what kind of entity the being, if you will, was circulated out of. Like I said, these entities, if they possess themselves from different religions, then they have actually, they have those traits.
I have a call. I have a call in.
Sure.
This is Tim, founder of Life Sci-Fi. Tim, go ahead with your question.
Hey, Kurt, I just had a question for you. I was listening to you talk. It's great to have you on the show. I had a question. You talked about how you believe that demons are basically thought forms and stuff, and you kind of touched on that. And this just goes back to the whole topic of media and Hollywood. If they are thought forms, going on that theory, do you think that just by, with these movies coming out, that they're further circulating or creating more demonic entities through outlets such as film and internet, YouTube, those media outlets? Do you think that those are further creating these entities?
Actually, that's a very good question, and actually that's a theory I've actually heard before, and I do kind of actually support that theory, because much like 6,000 years ago, when a group of people were sitting around and they were focusing and praying to a deity, if you will, just like their mind thought process kind of channeled this energy, and this energy took shape into what they were believing. That actually does lend to a lot of the possibility that, certain people have sat there, they see a movie, and it does twinge with them. But at the same time, always remember, there is that, it's storytelling, and you have to kind of just...
That their agendas are to create...
Oh, wait a minute, Tim, repeat your question, because he was talking.
Do you think that there are certain people in Hollywood where their ultimate agendas are to create and push these ideas, these deities or whatever they whatever they I guess whatever their platforms are? Do you think that their ultimate goal is to push this upon the public?
Well, see, that's just that's Tim. That's the caller, right?
Right.
Okay, Tim. In all fairness, always look at it like this: one, those conspiracy, that big Hollywood conspiracy, it wouldn't be as big as what we're seeing, is what we're announced. It would be a lot smaller as far as like who knows what, who's doing who, so to speak, or who's doing what. The conspiracy itself, though, would actually be bigger than Hollywood in regards of it would be on a worldwide level. Now, granted, entertaining the masses, that would be an easy way of doing it. I think our previous election that we just underwent saw how effective media can be, because the president basically won it on, being likable. He won it by being on YouTube and going from there. So, in all fairness, we're sitting there and we're focusing on Hollywood, and like I said, that's the reason why conspiracies can be dangerous, because we have too much of this sideshow conspiracy. People are paying attention to it instead of the actual conspiracy. You did touch base on the idea of someone saying, "Well, I want this entity, if you will, to finally have pronouncement, to finally have their moment, because people will start thinking about it." And that does actually, that does actually tend to make one believe that, yeah, that is very, very, very plausible. But I guarantee that they're going to do it in a way that no one's actually going to realize that. That's the biggest thing. A lot of people who sit there, and especially people who they read the Holy Bible, they believe in the Holy Bible, and they follow it thoroughly. They're always the first ones to try to find a way of sidestepping the Bible. And the reality about words that were written in that book, that's part of the reason why I know that President Obama is not Satan, is because it's actually clearly written. The Antichrist will be loved by all. In other words, there will not be one person to say anything negative about the Antichrist once he does actually appear on the planet. Another thing is that Satan's conspiracies, if you will, of control and domination will never be known by man until the very last moment. And the very last moment doesn't mean like years before it's ramping up to happen. It means the actual last moment. That's like I said, recently with the whole 2012 thing of the world coming to an end. Just because you got $3 million in survival gear doesn't mean you're going to survive the end of the world. It's called the end for a reason. That means the planet can go into the sun or whatever. The world's ending. It's done. It's over. And some people just don't want to stop and actually realize that what they're reading, it's got to sink in fully. I'm not sitting there telling people, oh yeah, go out and read the Bible and believe it verbatim, word for word, because there has been a lot of digression, if you will, with a lot of things that were written. We've translated the Bible so many times that certain things are literally lost in translation, if you could use that expression. But you've got to always remember that the conspiracy in Hollywood, yeah, it's there. Yeah, there are some people pulling certain strings, but the puppet master is only a small amount. It's not a complete line of people pulling all the strings. One thing that's always going to guaranteed happen, yeah, we're human beings. We want to know about the unknown. There are actually more people in Hollywood interested in ghost hunting than there possibly are even on Facebook, which I thought was impossible to believe. But no, I'm sitting there looking at, I got a printout a few years ago of actors and actresses since the 1950s that had started doing what is called ghost hunting. I mean, I don't know if they had any of the material. I doubt they had any of the technology that we have in modern time. I remember when I started ghost hunting, I started out with a VHS camera and just a simple audio cassette player. But like I said, there was always tools and tricks that could be done throughout time. Paranormal investigation has been going on for hundreds of years. It's not a new fad just because we got a bunch of people on TV with night vision cameras and they printed up
With all that being said, then do you think that the devil's agenda, the quickest way to get his word out would be to use media or to somehow affiliate or get into these circles? I guess, do you think that would somehow work his way in there to somehow
That's just it. That's just it.
To these masses through media?
That's just it. The media, what exactly would be the media? I mean, why limit ourselves to just TV and movies? Why not actually include everything? Stop and think about it. If we actually included everything, one, we could right now look at Rupert Murdoch and say, assume he's the Antichrist. Okay, he owns a large plethora of media outlets, from TV to radio to film. Obviously, I mean it's a massive corporation. But we could also sit there and enlighten and say, well, maybe Mark Zuckerberg is the Antichrist, because there's no way around it. You can't socially interact, especially now online, without Facebook. It doesn't happen. You go to any web page now online, and there's always a little button to like it on Facebook. we're sitting there and like I said, we're concentrating more on the sideshow. And we gotta stop that. If we really want to get to the root of the conspiracy, we really want to find out what's going on, we gotta start looking at the colder, harder facts and the basis. Stop and look at it this way. Right now, we've got a couple of fellas that have made some films. What was it, Insidious and then Sinister, in which certain demonic entities are being shown. Now, if we take your theory that because these entities haven't been really that well known, if you will, and there's media out there showing them, so therefore people are thinking about them. Why don't we stop and why don't we look at these gentlemen and find out where they came from? Find out about their childhood, what they do for fun, and so forth. That might be a plausible start. Or more importantly, why not look at the producers of the film, the people that enabled the films to be done? Outside of being the creative impulse, maybe it's the ones who are funding it. Maybe they could be in charge. Incidentally, to bring up an earlier conspiracy with the concept of Rupert Murdoch, were both of those films on Fox by any chance? Or were they Paramount? Or what were they? Go to the source. It's like I said, as far as conspiracies, too many times people they're dazzled by the sideshow, but they're not actually focusing on the important part. Who, what, why? Why is the most important question, and if we use your theory as the why, then it gives us time to stop and look at the who and the what and where. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, thanks for answering the questions. I appreciate it.
No problem, dude.
Tim, did you wanna stay on with me, or do you wanna go?
I'll go. I mean, the only thing that I have to add to this whole thing is, a lot of these movies that I found through my own research, like Sinister, being one of them, the demonic entity that they call over there, which is the ghoul, is loosely based on a couple of other, Semitic and Semitic and ancient Babylonian demons, and there is no demon, a ghoul or anything like that, but they kind of created it off of some of the other earlier ones. But the only last question I have is, do you know or have any knowledge about Bohemian Grove and the supposed worship of the demon Moloch?
The ironic